Who here has a cell phone? All right, I'm seeing a lot of hands. Cool. Who has an electric vehicle? All right, I still see a lot of hands. Who knows what metals and materials you need in order to make them? Okay, a lot less hands, but I'm still seeing some. Good. Okay, so let's cut to the quick, ladies and gentlemen. The future of technology, this green revolution that we've envisioned for so long, is built on a backbone of metals and materials, some of which we are just beginning to really get a grasp of what the supply chains look like and how we actually get them. Solar cells, everyone thinks silicon. Fusion reactors, everyone thinks hydrogen. But the supply chains needed to build each one of these things requires trace bits of critical materials, which, if we look at the periodic table, about 50% of the elements that we need for these specialty applications requires these red materials. And that means one of two things. Either one, we cannot mine it. The other is we cannot refine it, make it into a final product. And the grand irony is, we are fantastic at mining. In 2021, we pulled out 2.8 billion tons worth of metal. Okay? That's a lot. But if you look at that bottom right-hand corner, about 1.4 million tons, 0.03% is what unlocks these next-generation technologies for us. And then to complicate matters, we're also really, really good at making waste. For every ton of metal you make at least 1 to 5 tons of waste associated with it. This right here is the Oika-Hungary disaster in Europe. You probably heard of it, maybe you haven't, but needless to say, that's a giant pit that's going out into the wastewater, that's going out into rivers, that's going out into farmland. And we just don't happen to deal with it because it's not in our backyard. Convenient. But I'm going to make an argument here. We have so much of this tailings, this mining and metals waste. How can we take this 282.5 billion tons, that's 3.5 mile by 3.5 mile by 3.5 mile cube of material, and power our future? We have to innovate. We have to become better. So I did my best here. You see that little blue pixel? PowerPoint won't let me go any smaller. That right there is how much you need for rare earths to power the next 30 years, relative to that giant cube of everything else. And so what we've had to really do within the past 20 years or so is have some soul searching as a scientific community, as an engineering community, and understand what it actually takes to get these materials out. And only just now are we beginning to hear about some of these things. We have bacteria now that can pull copper out of waste. We have proteins that have been specially designed to capture the rare earths from wastewater streams. We even have molecules that we've designed. It's called molecular recognition. It can sort through millions of molecules and find the one atom of palladium that's in there. So we're gaining the ability to actually work with this giant pile of crap, basically. Okay, great. We figured out the sourcing issue. We can now look at all the tailings across the US, and we have tens of thousands of sites in the US, and we can now get the materials out of the ground. That's part one. Part two. You don't just pull certain metals out of the ground. I cannot pull neodymium out of the ground. We then have to refine it. And that goes to this right here. Copper is not a critical material in the sense of we have a ton of it. It's a critical material in the sense of we have difficulty refining it. Y'all ever see those old Victorian pictures of London with the smokestacks and everything? We got to ask ourselves, do we really want that again? The answer is probably not, let's be real. But we have to have that level of capacity. We have to have that level of production to meet the targets. This is just for copper. To hit a net zero target for 2050, we must mine and refine double the amount of copper that we have in human history. 25 years. It takes 17 years to usually commission a mine and open a refinery. So, clock's ticking, folks. Let's move. But the good news is, we've already got different technologies that are already actively working on this. These are two pictures. The left one is a standard metallurgical process that is 10 to 20 years old, that photo. The photo on the right is an example of a facility built in the last 12 months. You can really see the difference. Now, if I had food, I'd tell you which one I'd want to eat at. But let's think about this pragmatically for a moment, right? You can now have these refineries and not worry about pollution. We're forcing technology to meet our needs. We are innovating in ways that haven't been seen in decades because we have to. If we want to hit all of these targets, we must become better. And you're seeing it. Instead of using carbon, we're using electricity to produce metals. There are new hydrogen reactors coming online, plasma reactors. We're even developing reactors that simulate the conditions of space to successfully pull the metals apart from each other. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. So one thing to take away from this is that, yes, we are in a crisis. But in every crisis, there's a beautiful opportunity, and we have to rise to the occasion. And to pull all of this together, this is a picture of the Chernobyl sarcophagus. I was there in 2016. Chernobyl is a watershed moment in our history because it was one of the greatest crises that we ever encountered. We didn't know how to solve it. The reactor blew up. We have to deal with this immediately. And in 9 months, through the effort of tens of thousands of people, the problem was fixed. So now as we think about these next generation technologies, the supply chains, the geopolitics, all of these factors that roll together, we fundamentally have to have that same level of innovation that the people at Chernobyl had. We don't have the option or the luxury to say otherwise. The clock is ticking. I told you the timelines. So besides critical materials, I always want to invite people to push in areas that people have forgotten about. Two of them that are sort of related to materials are one, superconductors, and two, next-generation batteries. Superconductors, we know they work, but they're needed for fusion plants. But if we had room temperature superconductors using this new supply chain of materials, you could decrease the Earth's electricity consumption by 7%. That's meaningful right there. Number one. Number two, you now enable other technologies to crop up from it. You've now built a new base. For batteries, it's the same thing. But now we have to worry about the lithium. Find something else. Sodium, aluminum, magnesium. This is a crowd that has access to knowledge, to education, and the means. Let's go do something about it. So get that down to 5 cents a kilowatt hour. We now have power storage. All of this builds on itself. This is not one simple problem that we're solving. It's a complex one. But the more that we build, the more Lego blocks that we put together, the better the overall structure is going to be. So, to give you an idea, this is neodymium metal made right here. This is a sample of it. So this isn't the future. This is now. Let's go make the world better together.